taking a road trip. I'm packing light. Won't need material things from this life. Looking forward to meeting some people that I admire. Can't wait to travel to the other side. Hello, sweet spirits. Welcome to the show. My name is Suzanne Sorrell, and I'm the host and founder of Evermore Paranormal. Today, we're in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on a paranormal road trip. In particular, I'm standing in front of the Farnsworth House Inn. Let's go inside and find out more about this place.
Alright, so we're in the attic of the Farnsworth house here, which is probably the most historic part of the house. Now, the original part of the house was built in 1810, and that's the log cabin part that you see outside that's painted red. That contains 4 out of the 6 in-house rooms. So that contains the McFarlane, the Eisenhower, the Shultz, and the Jeremy rooms. Now, the part that we're in right now, and the entire brick house below us, that was built in 1833. And that kind of takes you up to 1863 here, when the battle took place here in Gettysburg. Now, when the Confederates raided town, they decided to use the Farnsworth house here as a sharpshooter's hold to shoot at the Union up at Cemetery Hill. Now, when they took over the house, there was quite a few sharpshooters up here. And as they were shooting up at the Union at Cemetery Hill up there, obviously the Union were shooting back. So as they were shooting back, they had to shoot out of that tiny little window in the back there. And that exterior wall out there has over 100 bullet holes, actually, from the Union trying to shoot back. Now, there were quite a few sharpshooters that did get hit and passed away in the attic here. And every time a sharpshooter was hit, the body was actually dragged all the way across the floor and put in the far corner of the attic here. And they did that about 5 times. Now, why they did that was so that they didn't bleed out right where they were shooting. Now, in today's world here, people below here, which is the Sarah Black Room and partially the Sweney Room, do hear dragging on this floor occasionally. And that is because these spirits, I think, remain here. I shouldn't say they remain here, but it's a residual energy, I think. It was very traumatic. I think that noise just naturally comes through here because of the trauma. And when the Shultzes actually bought this property and converted it into a bed and breakfast, they had the attic here as a B&B room. That was a little fixed up, of course. But they only used the attic room here, the garret room, for about a year and a half. And that's because they got so many reports of the sound of something dragging across the floor and the smell of rotting flesh that they actually had to stop using it as a B&B room up here. They then converted it into a tour area, and we've been using it as a tour area ever since. Now, up here today, spiritually, we do have sharpshooters in the attic here. A lot of Confederate soldiers do come through here. There is one who's a lieutenant named William that comes through here. And William, he was a sharpshooter. He does stay here at times. He's not always here. But when he is, he's very active. He will communicate with you, whether you use a spirit box or a voice recorder. People who use dowsing rods up here do communicate with him quite often. Now, we also have Walter, who's up here. Walter was a Confederate soldier that did pass away in this house. And he just happens to be very bitter towards women. And that's because he did receive a Dear John letter before he passed away. And this Dear John letter said, Walter, when you come back from the war, you won't have a house, wife, or kids to come back to because I found someone else. And then he was shot and killed in the house here. So he does remain, and he's still very bitter towards women. Women who stay in the house here in the B&B rooms will encounter him sometimes, and he does scare them at times. Enough so that they go up the street to the next hotel. Now, if he's in the attic here, he usually won't try to scare you, but he is intelligently communicating with us. He will let you know he's here, whether it be footsteps or knocking. That tends to be his favorite way to communicate with us. Up here also, we do have children that reside up here. The children in the house are Jeremy and Sissy. Jeremy, unfortunately, was a little boy, about 5 years old, who was hit and killed out front by a horse and carriage. He died in the house. His father brought him in from outside, and his bedroom at the time was actually the Sarah Black Room's bathroom, and that's the room that he passed away in. He's still around the house. He has a habit of pulling on people's clothing. That's a very childlike thing to let you know that he's there. He also unties shoes, so I always warn people to look at them before they stand up. Now, Jeremy also does play with electronics like cell phones. He tends to make them go off for no reason. He turns them on and off. So people who are up here tend to usually look at their cell phone to see what's going on. Now, the other child spirit that's been here recently, that's a new spirit, his name is Jonathan. And we've had multiple mediums tell us that he actually came from the orphanage. So whether he's a spirit that followed somebody who was at the orphanage and stayed here, or whether he's been here for a while, we don't know. But he does one thing in particular, and that is usually he will laugh at you. Why he laughs at you? Because these rafters are pretty low in the attic here. And we have some taller people. And when they smack their heads, Jonathan thinks that's funny, and you will actually hear laughter come from behind these display cases here. It's happened to me twice now. I was up here the first time, and I smacked my head pretty good, and I heard laughing coming from behind the display cases. I didn't think much of it. I didn't want to tell anybody that something was laughing at me, so I let it go. Same thing happened again. And then we had one of the newer storytellers up here, and he's pretty tall. He smacked his head pretty hard, and he heard laughter come from behind the display case. So that validated what I was actually hearing at that time. So Jonathan is up here, and he will communicate with you. Up here when we investigate, we do get a lot of activity behind these display cases, actually. A lot of children-like activity. So people do bring toys for the children up here so they can play with them. Now up here as well, the door behind me does tend to open by itself. And when we're in here and the lights are off, you can sometimes hear boots coming up the steps to this door, and you can even see the shadow of feet underneath the door sometimes. It's been happening quite often, frequently actually. Now also up here we do get Mary at times, who is the nicest spirit we have here. She was a midwife that passed away in the house, and she's still a midwife in the afterlife here. If you're sick or you're feeling down, she likes to comfort you in different ways. Now she tends to comfort people when they're in their beds down below us. She caresses people's arms. Probably not the best way to comfort somebody, but it's her intentions that are good. Now up here, she likes to sit around. I think she protects the children. I think she likes to make sure they feel safe and comfortable where they are, so that they can be here freely as well and be happy. So in the attic here, we do get a lot of activity as well. So if you ever come here, come on a tour so you can visit the attic here. If you're in the Sarah Black Room below us, beware, you might hear dragging above you.
My journey skating for the gold taught me a lot, but my journey with breast cancer has been one of my greatest teachers.
Every woman's breast cancer is unique. Be Wiser educates and empowers women to take control of their breast cancer treatment plan and help navigate their own path beyond 5 years.
Talk to your doctor about information and tests to personalize a treatment plan that fits your needs. I did. Be informed, be wiser, support survivors like us.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I am one of the lead investigators here at the Farnsworth House Inn, located in Gettysburg. Right now, we're actually in the cellar of the Farnsworth House, which actually is one of the most haunted spots of the house itself. If you've ever heard of the Farnsworth House, it's actually one of the most haunted places in America. Travel Channel rates it almost to the 13th, and I can truly believe why. I've investigated here on and off for 5 years, and I can tell you that I've had more activity here than a lot of other places I've been to. I own my own paranormal group, Keystone Paranormal Investigation Association, so I investigate a lot of places, and here is definitely one of the places where I get the most activity. In the cellar here, we do a lot of tours, especially investigation tours. So there's a lot of people down here, and that creates a lot of energy that makes it a good place for spirits to actually use that energy to do something for us. In the cellar here, we have a lot of different aspects that create paranormal activity. Mainly, we have haunted objects down here, and that's something in itself that creates activity. We have a funeral wreath from the Victorian age, and in the Victorian times, they used to take these dried floral wreaths and wrap deceased loved one's hair in them, and that creates paranormal activity sometimes here today. We have one in the back of the cellar here. One specifically has an attachment with it, and it's a black shadow figure that has been seen many times, and it's always described the same way. They say that it's a man sitting in the far back corner with his head down, and he has a wide-brimmed hat on. And this has been seen just recently as well. There was a woman who was doing a Confederate hospital walk here, and she saw this in the back corner, and she told one of the newer storytellers about it who didn't know the story. So he came to me and described it perfectly, so I told him that's exactly the same thing people see back there. So if you ever come here, keep an eye in that back corner. You'll be sure to see it sometimes. Now, another aspect of the room here, we do have a doll that is creepy, creepier than usual. It was found when the current owners of the house bought it. When they went to renovate some parts of the house, they pulled up one of the stairs that go to the attic of the house. And when they did that, they found this doll inside of the stairs. So it was intentionally put there, they just don't know why. Now, for 20 plus years, they've always had this doll in the back corner of the room, and that's where its home was. But just recently, they had to go back there to get to the pump, so they moved the doll to this corner over here. And when they did that, this doll has been doing things the Victorian dolls should not be doing. They shouldn't be making noise on their own. I was doing an investigation down here earlier this summer, and I turned the lights off. I like to have my quiet time to see what we can hear. And I heard the sound of a woman making like a moaning noise. And I honestly thought it was someone just messing with me, so I didn't really think anything of it. But then it started to get louder, so I turned the lights on, and I noticed that everyone was looking at me the same way I was looking at them. So I thought there was a problem. So I started looking around the room. When I made eye contact with that doll, that noise completely stopped. And that was the first occurrence we had with it. So the doll, I was down here one night around 2 in the morning by myself, putting my equipment away. And, you know, you typically don't want to be down here by yourself at 2 in the morning. I started to hear the sound of a little girl making like a humming noise, like a lullaby or a song. And, you know, that typically made me want to put my equipment away faster. So as I was doing that, the more I ignored it, the louder it got. It actually got so loud to the point where it hurt my ears. My eardrums actually ached from the noise. So I put my head up. And as soon as I did that, I got the immediate feeling of being watched behind me. So I turned around and I looked right at that doll. And as soon as I did that, that noise completely stopped. But it wasn't just that noise. It was everything else down here as well. Down in this cellar, you know, you do hear water dripping, or you hear water pipes or radiator pipes, or people gallivanting upstairs, or something. Road noise, I heard absolutely nothing. It was the kind of silence that, you know, your ears don't know how to comprehend, so it made that ringing noise. So the doll also, from the time I turned the lights off to investigate and turn them back on, people will say that they see this doll either in a different position or its head is in a different direction. So if you're down here, keep an eye on the doll. I have seen it move myself. It's not very comforting. The next thing I want to talk about is actually the mirror that's beside the doll. This mirror was bought in the late 1990s by the owner of the ghost tours back then. And she bought it at an antique auction, so she didn't know much about it. And she put it down here, and things were good for a little while. But then she started to notice things that she wasn't comfortable with. And the more time went on, the more uncomfortable she got. So she had called a trained professional in the paranormal field back then. And they told her to put a black cloth over the mirror for 3 years. And that's what she did. 3 years came and went, she took this cloth off and things were fine, but only for a little while. That negativity slowly crept its way through again. And we've been in a constant cycle of putting this cloth on and off. The last time it was taken off was about January of last year. And things were good up until about May. That's when I started noticing people taking pictures and getting images around them that shouldn't be there. People were getting dark, scary looking figures. A woman got a cloaked figure standing in front of her that I can personally vouch that was not there at the time. And we even had a storyteller who was new here. He was a history presenter, so he wasn't really into the whole paranormal thing. Didn't really exist in his world. He came down here one day to do a house tour. He went to turn that light on behind the camera here, and when he did that, he got the immediate feeling of being watched, and he didn't like that feeling. So he turned around, and he looked directly in the mirror. And when he did that, he said that what was looking at him was not himself. So he saw something, he said, that did not even look human in front of him in that mirror. And that scared him to his wits. He actually had to interrupt my tour that night to tell me that. And you could see the pure fear in this man's eyes. So I truly believe that that happened to him. Now down here, it's not just the objects. We do have a lot of spirits in the house. And these spirits, they do roam, so they can be all over the house. Now down here, specifically, we get all kinds of different activity. We get voices, noises, footsteps, people getting touched, visual evidence, all kinds of different activity. And if you come down here, you know, you're sure to see something. So we hope to see you here.
Losing weight's a lot harder than gaining it, but with every step, I lower my risk for type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And that makes every step very much worth the effort.
Learn how you can help stop diabetes. Visit checkupamerica.org or call 1-800-DIABETES.
Okay, so we're kind of doing a tour of the house now. I'll stand in front of each room, kind of give you guys a story about it. This door right here, actually to my left, was Jeremy's room at the time. That's where he passed away. Now that's the Sarah Black Room's bathroom that I'm standing in front of. Sarah Black Room is said to be the most haunted room in the house. And we do get a lot of activity in there. Jeremy is in there a lot. People do hear footsteps. People do get grabbed and touched. There is a mannequin that sits in the corner of that room that disturbs a lot of people. That was Sarah Black's wedding dress, and Sarah Black is not haunting that dress. We think, actually, it came from the fact that that dress was put in the haunted objects area when we did the entertainment seances at the Farnsworth House here. Now, even though it was entertainment purposes, we were still doing the active seance. So I'm sure at some point, some things probably did get released. And we did have objects that were said to be haunted in that room. So I think something may have latched onto that wedding dress. And now that it's back in the room there, it has been doing things a mannequin should not be doing. It does move on its own. The arms have flailed to the point that people are actually disturbed by it. So the best thing I can tell you about staying in the Sarah Black Room is sleep on the side of the bed that's closest to the door. It's going to save you a lot of trouble. Okay, so we're standing in front of the Sweney Room now, which sits right beside the Sarah Black Room. The Sweney Room is known to be a very heavy room. If you're sensitive to the paranormal at all, you will feel the heaviness in this room. People have heard children crying, babies crying in this room, and that is for a reason. There were 2 children that did pass away in this house. And it said even that there was an infant that did pass away in that room. So I think people are hearing that residual cry of a baby or a child in there. Now, people also do see shadow figures standing at the edge of their beds, as well as hear footsteps along their bed. I think the activity could possibly be coming from the fact that it is right beside the Sarah Black Room. And I do think that there is something that just resides in that room itself. I had a lady who was staying here just recently, and she was sleeping on the side of the bed that was closest to the door. And as she was laying there, she saw this shadow figure walk right out of the closet walk right in front of her, turn to the bed, and sit there and stare at her. And she freaked out. She ran out of this room, she grabbed her stuff, she threw her key at the front desk, and she was gone. That scared her. It's an intense room. If you're definitely looking for activity in the house here and you can't get a hold of the Sarah Black room, then I always recommend the Sweney Room if you're looking for some of that more intense feelings from a room itself. So you can stay here in this room. Make sure you have a voice recorder going because people do catch the sounds of children and infants as well. Alright, so now we're standing in front of the majority of the rooms here. All of these were built in the 1810 part of the house. So that's why they're pretty much all close together. I'm standing in front of the Jeremy Room here first. The Jeremy Room, when the house was originally built, was a back porch. Over the years, it was made into different things. Now it was made into a bed and breakfast room. And the history behind that room, though, on that porch, that's where a lot of the bodies of the house were put when the war was over and the Confederates left town. So the next room I want to talk about is the McFarlane Room, where people do get a good amount of activity in that room. It's probably one of the more beautiful rooms that we have in the house here, but people do experience a lot of getting touched in that room. People get their feet grabbed, their legs grabbed, their arms grabbed. They hear voices in that room in their ear. That little white dress that hangs on the wall there tends to move by itself a lot. And not in like an air conditioning vent kind of way, more so like something is physically moving it. So that room does have a lot of activity as well. We always tell people if you can't get into either the Sarah Black or the Sweney Room to go into the McFarlane Room and you can get activity in there. The rocking chair in that room is very active. People see that rocking chair move a lot. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've also seen shadow figures in that room. There was an instance where I was staring at something that I thought was a person, and then I asked who it was, and I realized that it was a shadow figure the entire time. So that room does have a lot of activity, so definitely stay there if you're in the mood to explore the ghost hunting side of the Farnsworth house here. So the Eisenhower Room up there in the 1810 part of the house is a beautiful room. It's made after Mamie Eisenhower, who actually stayed here one time. And it's quite a feminine room, and Mary does tend to be in that room a lot, so people do get their comforters moved, and they do feel that comforting sensation down their arm. Now, people have also heard the sink turn on in that room quite a lot. It does turn on by itself. We've checked the plumbing on it. There's no reason that it should be doing it unless it's paranormal. And also in that room, people have experienced the sound of a woman talking in there, which we also think would be Mary. So if you're staying at the Farnsworth house and you want a quiet, peaceful stay, that room might be the most beneficial for you. So the last room I'll talk about is going to be the Shultz Room. The Shultz Room is a very interesting room. Gets looked over a lot, but it is a very active room. That's where I get most of my intelligent communication, so that's definitely a room to go to if you want to investigate. I've seen shadow figures in there. I had one standing right in front of my face. Everyone has heard footsteps in there at some point. The bathroom door closes on its own. If you read the journal in there, you'll see people have written so many things about different odd things happening to them. In the Shultz Room, it has a long hallway to get into the room, and it looks weird, but that's because the Jeremy Room beside it used to be the back porch of the Farnsworth house here. So if you're looking for activity and you don't want to go to the Sarah Black Room, I always recommend the Shultz Room to people. I've had the most experiences in that room, so it's definitely a room to go to if that's what you're looking for.
So, thank you for joining me on another Paranormal Road Trip. Until next time, peace out.
Hello, sweet spirits. My name is Suzanne Sorrell. I'm the producer and host of the Evermore Paranormal Network. The Evermore Paranormal Network is a variety talk show that focuses on paranormal-related topics. So tune in to the Evermore Paranormal Network right here on Fairfax Public Access.
Can't wait to travel to the other side.